If this were a trap, you would certainly be able to kill me before you went down.
No question about it.
Welcome
morning,
to
everyone.
to late nights Kill James Bond. Listen, good sleep hygiene is important, right? But not for me.
Mm-hmm.
I am Alice Caldwell Kelly, joined as always by my friends Abigail Thorne and Devon.
Hello, I am slipping out of my bedroom in a silk robe. I am sitting down with a pot of tea. There are birds outside the window. It's a sleepy Bond. It's a sleepy Kill James Bond.
I'm sitting here. I'm going honk. Me 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 me. There's a feather above my mouth that's just sort of like being blown up and then floating back down.
I'm cozy pilled. I'm snug maxing. And I'm HSTS. I'm a highly sleepy transsexual.
Oh my god. Oh, well done.
Fuck off.
And the worst part is this sort of late night energy is coming to you at 1400 hours British time, 2 p.m. And yet, due to the fact that we're all very functional, every single fucking host of your favorite podcast has been incapacitated by a lack of sleep. But we watched 1964's To Trap a Spy, the first of God knows how many movies that they made by cutting together bits of old footage from the TV show The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yeah, so listeners, The Man from U.N.C.L.E, if you weren't aware from it, weren't aware of it, is a very, very famous 60s spy TV show, kind of in the vein of like a little bit like The Saint. It was just like an icon. And they took some of the episodes of it and then they filmed extra footage and like recut them and they turned them into sort of 90-minute films, of which there's sort of 6 or 7. And then we'll do the whole series and then we'll do the modern Man from U.N.C.L.E film with Henry Cavill. And what I've seen is, so my brother and I were really into these when I was a kid. And what I really love about this series is that as it goes on, they just get progressively stupider and stupider. So this is the most serious.
This is the most serious one? Oh, crap.
Yeah. This is like, they're like playing straight, and then the rest of it is just like fucking ridiculous.
Well, because Ian Fleming was involved with The Man from U.N.C.L.E for a while. Like, the Broccolis sued and made him take his name off of it. Before that, it was like Ian Fleming's uncle.
And it shows, because this is basically just like a Bond ripoff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And like, as Abby says, later on, it gets more sort of like, it gets into like spy-fi and stuff. But here, we're just doing
imagine
like...
listeners, if every film in the Bond series was Moonraker.
Fuck yeah.
They all get Moonraker.
There's like, we've split the audience here, right? Because some of them will just be putting their head in their hands, and others will just be like, yes, this is my podcast. It was made for me. So yeah, enjoy that as it happens. But we have to start with To Trap a Spy, which begins with 009 getting killed in the grandest tradition of Bond films.
The clown agent. Fool.
Yeah. What's fucked up is that this 009 looks insanely like Mark Ruffalo. Like,
yeah, I thought it was Mark Ruffalo too, actually.
Yeah, like there's a shot of him like he opens the car door. He's like crashed his car. He's like gut shot. He looks out the thing. I'm like, that's fucking Mark Ruffalo.
This is like, already I'm like, perfect. This is the vibe. I'm back in the room. I love it when I start a film and it opens by excitedly proclaiming that it's in color. I'm like, beautiful.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah. It just, we get a scene of him being chased from his car by goons and through the woods. They're like pushing foliage out of the way. And this is so poorly edited. Occasionally the timing isn't right, so a guy moves in fast motion. It's so poorly acted. It's so poorly fucking...
It's beautiful. It's
they
so
hadn't
good.
invented acting back then. They hadn't invented editing. They hadn't really
we
invented
are
sound
pre-everything.
design.
Like, it's like real old school Connery Bond shit. It's really fun. It's nice to...
100%.
I'm saying return with a V. We're going back.
Yeah, and so the brief that this actor 009 has been given is, okay, you're gonna stumble to this house and you're gonna like drag yourself through the agony of your searing sort of like gunshot wound to the guts. You're gonna drag yourself through the house up to the bedroom looking for a woman named Angela. And what you actually get in terms of the acting is guy is coming home from a heavy night. He just kind of like covered in sweat. Occasionally forgets that his legs work.
This is you at like 9 a.m. this morning, Alice.
Yes, that was me now. Like, if you asked me to get up and walk across the room, you would get the same sort of like the same movement out of me. I would like stumble from like table to table,
knocking things off the shelf, that kind of stuff. Like
that's right. That's right. So at first he thinks that no one is home, so he burns some of the labels out of his clothes in the fireplace, and then he gets on the phone to his boss in New York and says they're going to try to assassinate the president of fictional country.
Yes, like West Natumba, I think. Oh, he doesn't say that. It says the president of West Natumba is going to visit a chemical plant next week, and they are planning to assassinate, and then he gets cut off. Somebody cuts the phone line. It's good.
Yes.
It's good. Yeah. It's dramatic. It's exciting.
And then at this point, a woman who I know is evil walks in, and I know she's evil because she's Italian.
I know she's evil because that's Fiona Volpe from the
Yes!
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
I was like, that's
she is a Bond girl. Like, here she is.
Speaking of
and
early
she's playing
Connery, I was like,
Fiona Volpe.
Let's go. Yeah, she is just playing Volpe again.
You might remember her, listeners, from the last time. She was like, James Bond, who only has to have sex with a woman, she starts hearing a heavenly choir. Like, it's her. She's back.
Yeah.
Welcome
Delivering
back to
worse
the pod.
lines, but yeah, no, returning champion, Fiona Volpe. And so she comforts him, I guess, and is like, oh, I didn't know the phone's out. That's crazy. Can you go and stand by this big window,
She's wearing
please?
this like incredible nightie, by the way, which is apparently what like in the 60s was passed for sexy. So like nowadays this woman would be here in like lingerie, but they can't do that because it's the 60s and they hadn't invented sex yet. So she's here in this like kind of like bloomers and like a sheer nightie. It's not sexy, but you can tell they're trying to be. And like this is the thing that your granddad thought was like the sexiest shit he'd ever seen.
100%,
It's not sexy,
100%
but it's like sexy coded. You're
Yeah.
like
A woman in like a sort of like a pink ankle-length quilted housecoat that's made mostly out of asbestos. If you showed that to your grandfather, he would get so horny he would die.
Yeah.
it happened.
But so,
Yeah, R.I.P.
That's how they went out. Terrible, terrible.
That's what he would have wanted.
How that champions.
It like saw this movie and was like so horny, like he cannot think.
Had a heart attack, which like wasn't.
I think I have COVID.
Wasn't survivable back then as it is now. But anyway, Angela like says, "Oh, you should look out the window for some
Yeah,
reason."
wouldn't it be cool if you went over to the big window and looked out of it? And he's
This
like,
is
yes, dear.
this is a
your hand on
hitman
this metal plate.
assassination.
It's so-
Yeah.
it's so
It's very contextual, like stand in this spot. And then what she does is she turns her photography studio lights on him because she's a photographer. And he gets got through like some gunshots through the window. That they just like rake his body with gunshots. It's sort of a Godfather way. And then the really funny thing is that after he's dead, they just shoot like one more burst just into the room generally. Just to add insult to injury.
And it's quite good. It's a good reveal because then the two guys who shot him come upstairs and they open the door and they are apparently on the same team as Angela. And they said, "Did he manage to contact anybody?" And she said, "Yes, he managed to get through to New York." And we're like, "Oh, these are the bad guys!" Like,
Yeah, she's
fun.
doing
It's
the
cool.
evil voice now. Yeah.
And then we get a sequence which I really love because listeners, this film kind of assumes that you know about the Man from U.N.C.L.E. TV series and like who the characters are. But if you
Yes.
don't, this is like a really cool introduction to like
That's true.
who the
That is
U.N.C.L.E.
true. So we get a sort of nice old archival shot of New York City, of Manhattan. And New York looked like shit in the 60s. Like, people talk about urban decay or whatever in the 70s, but no, in the 60s, what we see is like the UN building, and across the street from it is like a factory of 3 giant smokestacks going. And it's just like, oh man, it used to be fucking atrocious. Maybe it still is, I don't know. Also, if you know what those giant smokestacks are, do write in. But so what we see is a little like like a tailoring shop in the basement of a brownstone, the Florias, I think it's called. And there's a guy in there, pressing some jackets. Guy walks in. This guy looks suspicious. He looks sort of goon coded, and takes off his jacket, lights a cigarette, goes to light the other guy's cigarette, the guy working there, and fully smokes him out because the lighter is like a sort of like
knockout
gas Roger Moore LSD noise ass dispenser. Actually, there's a couple of times when I can use this because they reuse this bit. They like use this on 2 different people in this, and some good screenshots here, I think, perhaps.
Yeah, this so they knock out the tailor, and then the guy, he opens the door.
And then no, he doesn't open the door. What he does is he equips his special bell silencer.
Right.
It's like something he's brought with him for this purpose,
right.
to like muffle the little bell above the door.
Yeah, he puts something in it so that the bell doesn't ring when he opens the door and lets in like a bunch more. This is like three more goons.
Being a spy is like just putting on a suit and kind of doing elaborate bits with the boys. It's so good.
Yeah. It's
they
so
just
cool.
go in, they're all wearing business suits. They fucking they break into the secret spy
room,
headquarters.
Which is underneath the tailor.
In the tailors.
Yes.
And there's a receptionist that they also do a little knockout gas thing to, which is very sweet.
Mm-hmm. I love the design of, as soon as you get into the spy base,
so good.
The receptionist is like watching this from like a red Bakelite monitor. Everything is like concrete because like fucking brushed steel hasn't been in. Yeah, it's
fantastic.
Perfect.
This is like perfect spy location vibes. This is like Casino Royale in the 60s as well. This was just what it looked like to be a spy. And
this receptionist genuinely, like, they bust in the door, knock her unconscious with the knockout gas, and the guy just fully like picks her up and like dumps her somewhere out of the way, which great first date idea for me. However, it immediately sets the tone for what this movie is going to be, right? Or at least we think it does, which is we're not in the fucking killing people business here. We're in the knockout gas business. This is the sort of like baseline level of violence. The worst thing that happens to you is you sleep it off in a corner, much like me after recording this episode. You get sort of honk pilled and, you
stand on the honk.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're fine.
But then they steal some security badges. The U.N.C.L.E. By the way, this is the headquarters that we surmise of the U.N.C.L.E., who are the United Network Coalition for Law Enforcement, not United Nations, because that term is protected. But the United Network Coalition for Law Enforcement, they're like fucking like international MI6. We'll learn more about them later.
Two of these guys steal the sort of security badges as brought to you by Doritos.
I love the security badge design, man. They're so good. They're like big plastic triangles that you clip on that have a number on. It's so
like
cool.
Poker chips. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I've been thinking of them as security Doritos the whole time. And they clip those on and they go in undercover, and
There's no
really sort of
here.
like
it's all kind of silent, and you hear like the clicking and the clacking of their shoes on the concrete floor. It's very, very dramatic. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So they make their way in, only to get to another checkpoint where they set off the alarm, the very annoying alarm,
the alarm,
which will continue for the rest of this scene. It's sort of like GoldenEye 64 sort of levels of alarm. The door like shuts on them. One guy gets through. The other guy literally gets caught in the door.
Not like killed or
and
anything.
The security
not
guard
like crushed. Just stuck. And it's like, shit. That's the level we're pitched at here.
He gives up. Like he surrenders.
Oh, he gives up so easily. The security guard like knocks the gun out of his hand, walks over, goes to get the gun that he's knocked out of his hand, like points the gun at him. He's like, oh, okay then. And he's kind of like holding his arm where it's been stuck in the door, and you're like, oh.
Poor fella. It's just gone waylaid, and it's like, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. What's also really funny is that the second anyone has a gun in this movie, what they do is they hold it in one hand and they kind of like hunch over forward.
Yes. They do the
little
fucking
Uncle
Moore
Moose.
thing. They might as well have like one hand out the side. Like it's perfect.
No, they don't. They don't. It's like it's almost a Roger. It's like a cousin to a Roger Moore thing. Very much to keep with the vibe of the film. They don't stick a hand out, but they do kind of. They do a little uncle hunch,
semi-crouch.
The funniest thing is, for 1964, this is tactically correct. They took like that. Yeah, that's how the army taught you to fire, like to hold a pistol. It's to like hunch all the way over and look like a dipshit. Yes, truly yes. And to me, that makes it so much funnier.
It's such like a British army officer vibe to me. It's just like holding this gun, half crouch. You're quite low. You're holding it with one hand, and you go, "Who goes there?" That's it. Like
they hold a gun like you would hold a live snake.
Yeah. I
have no conception of how I would hold a live snake.
No one does until you have to hold a live snake, and then you decide very quickly.
And then you hunch over.
Having held live snakes, that is how I held them. Anyway, the other guy gets through, and he blows his way through the door. We see there's a bunch of Uncle agents who are being scrambled, one of whom we'll meet later. And then...
by the way, the way he gets through that door is he's brought with him from home a briefcase with an oven glove in it.
It's so good. It's fantastic.
And he uses that oven glove to apply like some plastique or some thermite, we're not sure which, to a door to like blow his way in. And he just tosses the poor fucking oven glove. Fantastic.
And at this point,
then we meet a man.
We get the best character introduction I've ever seen in my fucking life.
So good.
It's perfect.
Oh my god.
So
it's really good.
The evil spy, he's from W.A.S.P., which we'll get into, I'm sure. He opens the door and he looks ahead of him and he sees silhouetted against the background a man stood so normal and so okay. Naturally, this guy shoots straight at him, only to discover that he stood behind some bulletproof glass. So you get a bunch of cracks, and then the lights flick on and you see just sort of a normal looking guy.
we see the actor Robert Vaughn playing the character of Napoleon Solo. Solo! Incredible Uncle Agent, and the vibe is like American discount Sean Connery.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. He doesn't even look like he's not He's
not good looking. He just looks like a normal man.
Just a fella in a suit. And what he does is very dramatically run. Well, run is a bit strong.
Well, he doesn't even run at first.
Jog around the room.
This is a problem, right? Because so much of the like unintentional comedy of this movie is purely visual, and I'm struggling to convey to you the way that when the like bulletproof glass gets shot for the third or fourth time, what Robert Vaughn does is he does a little like whoop, sort of excuse me motion out of the frame in the same way.
Do you remember that Roger Moore couldn't do a fight scene? He just didn't have that kind of killer instinct. He didn't have that aggression. That's Robert Vaughn. He just walks around the guy and then...
He moves in the same way that, like, someone with, like, a tray full of drinks trying to get past me makes me move. Of like, whoop, sorry there. And then
I don't know if, like, maybe this is a limitation of the form. Maybe they couldn't rotate the camera fast enough. But, like, it's so fucking funny that this guy's main reveal is that he sort of just walks around the other guy and shoots him. Like, effortlessly flanks him.
This is the most fun thing as well, is that, like, throughout the whole film, like, so Sean Connery, listeners, this film actually made me appreciate Sean Connery's performance as James Bond a bit more, because Sean Connery as James Bond was charming. And he, like, you know, he smiled, he was nice to people. Robert Vaughn, it's just like, he's not charming at all. He's just kind of a dick. He's just a sort of normal dude.
I hadn't actually seen A Man from U.N.C.L.E. thing apart from the reboot until now, and seeing the way that Robert Vaughn plays Napoleon Solo made a lot of pieces fall into place for me. It made the character of Archer make a lot more sense to me. It made, like, because essentially he's got one thing. That thing is smug, and he conveys it through his eyebrows.
Yes.
So he, like, sidesteps around the wall, shoots the guy 3 times, kills him. Meanwhile, the other agents have, like, just sort of brought in his 3 comrades, the guys they captured. And we see Robert Vaughn's boss, Mr. Allison, who steps out into the thing and was like, "Oh, I guess they were trying to kill me then. You could have taken this one alive for interrogation, maybe." And Vaughn sort of waggles his eyebrows and goes, "Well, we've got these three." Also, another Robert Vaughn thing. It's like this is the great thing about his acting. It's so formulaic that I can just pick out things like this. Whenever he has to smile, whenever the direction is to smile, what he does is he like grimaces like someone has like lightly squeezed one of his balls, and then like sort of like gets it off his face as quickly as possible and goes back to eyebrows.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I'm sorry.
Once you notice it, you can't not notice it.
I didn't need to think about Robert Vaughn's balls.
just like a light, like a light squeeze, like a handshake sort of thing.
Yeah.
And he uses his whole mouth. So it's like, but just for a second, and then it's gone.
But yeah, then so at this point we also we briefly meet but aren't properly introduced to Elia Kuriakin, who will in future films be Robert Vaughn's partner, but in this film,
not appearing in this movie.
Yeah, he's there. He's played by David McCallum, famous flautist. But he's really good in this. But anyway, David McCallum, Elia Kuriakin brings in these other three agents who've been captured, and then he sits them down on the couch, and then they just kind of fall over dead.
What happens is they don't even do that until he touches them. They're sitting down completely still, have died at this point as soon as they've sat down.
And at this point, David
Allison
McCallum
goes, "Hey, touch one of them." And he touches them. He's like, he's fucking dead.
So
Gotcha.
David McCallum is playing Soviet Uncle Agent Elia Kuriakin because Uncle is international. And at this point in the series, he's still doing the accent, which he later gives up on. But he's like, "This man is dead."
The drop is, I got this one.
They are dead. But how?
It's so fucking good.
It's on the game. Why you have to be mad?
Wow.
We have big plan, you know. The 60s sound design is so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so at this point we get an M briefing Bond scene because Napoleon Solo.
Bond, what do you know about African country?
Yeah.
And at this point, my note I've written down here is, "Oi, you can't fucking say that."
My one
cunt.
is, "Oh no."
Oh God, yeah. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Allison goes, "Solo, what do you know about?"
Newly independent, very primitive African nation.
Like, you got focus.
Yeah. Just nudging up the C score there.
Yeah, but the way in which this movie treats is it Western Tumba?
West Natumba, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, the way this movie treats West Natumba is in its way,
I think it's
occasionally
quite good.
strangely progressive.
Yeah.
In other ways, not so good. This is one of the not so good columns.
It's just something that genuinely struck me later on is like how well the characters from the Tumba are like treated. These guys are just
could have been a lot
characters.
worse.
They're real people.
But like
It's so
the sort of the vibe is Western Tumba has like thrown off the shackles of its colonial oppressor.
And is
Which
now
is
putting on the
good.
shackles of international.
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
But for now, they don't even get that far. They're just like, it's a new nation on the world stage, and that's a good thing. And we're sort of like broadly optimistic about this. Now, if you say like, oh, there's like a new country or whatever, that's sort of like a punchline, right? At this point, 1964, that's like, no, this is like George Washington shit is happening in the jungle right now.
What is the newest country?
Yeah, exactly. And we as sort of the community of nations are like, proud to sort of welcome them onto the international stage. Unfortunately,
South
someone's
Sudan,
going to fucking kill the fucking premier, the prime minister.
So M tells Bond, or Allison tells Solo. So one of our guys at the start, Agent Lancer, the guy from the opening of the film, he's been killed.
Yeah, Mark Ruffalo.
He's been killed.
1964 Mark Ruffalo, that's right.
He had infiltrated a chemical weapons a chemical company, which is owned by a guy called Andrew Vulcan. And this is a
cool name.
It's nothing but
and this is
banging
a
names
front.
so far.
This is a front. The chemical company is a front for Wasp. Wasp are Spectre, and there's kind of a funny thing with this, which is that so in the Man from U.N.C.L.E. series, the Spectre villains are actually called Thrush.
I noticed.
Yeah. Yeah, they're actually called, but for some like copyright shenanigans in this film, they're called Wasp, and they're like dubbed over really badly.
Poorly
so
dubbed,
every time
yes.
it's just like, we need to try and stop Wasp.
It's even better. The most noticeable one is like when they have the head of the nation of Matumba say it, and his voice is so different to the one that they dub him over with. It's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
Wasp.
He's like, Wasp.
Perfect.
Yes.
Just fantastic.
So Solo's like, all right, fine. I'm gonna go see, I guess, my handler / secretary / slam piece.
Yeah. So the mission is
Moneypenny.
find out who killed Lancer, and then stop whatever Wasp is up to, like trying to assassinate. We assume the president of West Natumba. And then so Q and Moneypenny are the same person in this.
Yes.
Q Penny.
Stacked 10 out of 10 baddie.
Yeah. Maggie.
Yes, and Maggie works in a little office with a sealed door and a radio in it where she just talks to Solo in the field, which says a lot about how men sort of desire women. But she's about to go on vacation.
Yeah,
and this
imagine
movie
desiring a woman where you couldn't touch her, but you could only hear her voice, listeners. Wouldn't that be like really weird?
One of the things that
sounds
she says
romantic to
whenever
me.
she's on the radio is,
Channel D is open.
and I fucking bet it is.
Because this is another like uncle thing where like it's an iconic phrase where wherever they want to talk to uncle, they just go, open channel D, please.
Channel D is open.
Channel D is open, listeners.
So this movie is so old that Fire Island wasn't even gay yet. Is how old it is. She's like packing for a vacation. She's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to Fire Island. Totally normal, unremarked upon. But what Robert Vaughn does, what Solo does, is he sees her bikini top just like draped over a chair, immediately grabs it. He holds onto it for the rest of the scene, and then he does a perfect inverse baby boom echo of the Shinzo Abe meme, because what he says is,
This ain't going to slow down the population explosion, I'll tell you that.
I'm gonna keep it real with you. 36th President of the United States, Lyndon Baines Johnson. This will not ameliorate the exploding population.
All of his like Bond one-liners are like this, and they're all shit. They're all like, what the fuck?
They're all
dude?
shit. Yeah, he picks up the bra and is like, well, this is too expensive to have shrunk, so I suppose you must have bought it like that. And everyone's like, you did it, buddy.
Ha! 60s jokes.
Yeah,
she
it's
gives him a communicator. She also gives him a briefer using an incredibly loud.
Yes, yes, I wrote this down too. She's just like, yeah, let me just activate the extremely loud briefing projector.
So she's like showing a bitch like, this is Vulcan, this is the factory. So I was like, doing a fucking, like, having to fucking shout over the noise of this slide projector. It's so good.
So what she tells him is that the delegation from Western Timber is like is
dear.
3 people. There's the president, the guy that they're gonna try and kill, President Ashiman. There's his Minister of Defense, and there's his Minister of Economics. And that's it. That's all you know. That's all you get. And then at this point,
He calls her an agent provocateur.
I have that line.
AGP,
quite
for short.
literally. Yeah, me when I flash a bra strap to get they them pussy.
Well, thank you, my little agent provocateur.
and then he has this line where, because she's going to tan on Fire Island is the idea.
Yes.
And he explicitly compares her to a piece of meat by saying medium rare on both sides. And it's like, okay.
Weird, really, isn't it?
1964.
Yeah. And they are in like some kind of. I think we're supposed to imagine like friendly, flirtatious
Yeah,
office
fucking Moneypenny
relationship.
shit. Like,
Yeah,
But also she's
except the difference
cute.
is they are fully fucking. Like that's one of the things that the Bond franchise sort of like diverted into as it became curiously prudish about Moneypenny until the Lazenby era, where it's like, yeah, it's just like this unspoken. It's like a flirtation between them that we kind of sense didn't really go anywhere. Whereas this is like, no, they're fucking all the time in there.
oh, by the way, we also hear that the Wasp guys who died at the start, who just like fell over dead, it's because they swallowed poison before they even went on the mission. So they were.
Yeah,
They were, it was a
I
suicide
kind of
mission.
like this idea
Yeah.
because Kuryakin is like, yeah, you know, whether they succeeded or failed, they were dead. They were dead men, and you know, they kind of immediately undercut it by being like, Wasp is so evil that they probably didn't even tell them that they were poisoned. But so we do some detective work. Solo goes through Andrew Vulcan's old yearbook to be like, well, he must have been heterosexual at some point. He's Volcel now because of business.
That's right. Like me.
But as an American man, at some point he must have been going steady with a woman. And
Such a cute expression.
he looks through sorority records, which he
He just has those, I think.
Yes, it's a club for girls.
it's a useful drop. And he finds a photo of Vulcan with his arm around a woman whom he has to deduce who this is. And let me tell you, got a fucking name alert as we introduce
Elaine May Bender.
I also wrote Elaine Bender.
Yeah.
Elaine May Bending Rodriguez.
Robert Vaughn's voice is so good. This like
Yeah,
he
100%
always
so good.
sounds like this. Yeah.
So Elaine May Bender is she's from New York. She dated him in college, and then she went off to get married, and is now an unremarkable suburban housewife in suburban upstate New York.
What a dream.
Absolutely.
Jesus.
So he goes to visit her. There's a fantastic sort of almost bawdy bit where, in order to make this introduction, he's gotten the bishop of her church to send her pastor or her priest to chaperone her and introduce him as no, this guy's fine. It is normal to let Robert Vaughn in your house. He just does this thing with his eyebrows. Do not be alarmed.
I think it's slightly weirder to let Robert Vaughn in your house if he's introduced by a priest. What?
And the priest gets a bit of comedy too, because he's like, well, the bishop told me to vouch for him, but in good conscience, I can only really vouch for the bishop, and then gets pulled off stage by a big hook, sort of thing. It's like pure vaudeville.
But anyway, then Robert Vaughn wins the Brian Cox Memorial Award in Intelligence.
He wins the Brian Cox Memorial Award in Intelligence and Barb, because what he does is he sits her down. He's like, Wasp is a secret, top secret kill squad.
You heard of Spectre? It's Spectre.
Yeah. However, I'm a member of U.N.C.L.E, which is another top secret kill squad.
He goes, I'm a member of U.N.C.L E, and she responds,
And here's
that's not the one.
You know, I've heard of that, I think. I've read about that somewhere.
Just like,
Cool.
Secret agents.
Normal.
You have?
But my favorite sort of totally
It's like saying
unspoken
you've heard
thing.
of the Men in Black.
Well, she's a 50s housewife. She's like, I'm a lot of Quaaludes, and I've been reading sort of some weird literature. But my favorite unspoken thing here is that when he introduces it, when he shows his ID, which he then snatches away from her, he doesn't say uncle, he says the U.N.C.L.E. And then and you can tell he's like, this time I'm gonna make it stick. And she's like, oh, uncle, and immediately he folds, and he's like, the rest of the movie, he just calls it Uncle. And it's like, fuck.
He wanted it to be so much more impressive. It's like, I'm with the U.N.C.L.E. And she's like, Uncle? And it's like, yeah, yes, Uncle.
The United Network Committee for Law Enforcement. And Uncle needs you to get on a plane to Washington, D.C. right now, and abandon your husband and your children in order to serve your country.
Yeah, and get close to Andrew Vulcan and find out what the deal is with this, because we think they're going to assassinate the president of this new nation. This is a fucking banger of a premise for a film. It's suburban housewife has to go and become a glamorous spy lady.
Yeah,
and,
this rocks.
This is so. I wish the movie had been from her point of view, to be honest.
This will get tired, however, because one of the tenets of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. was that in order to give you a way in, they had to have an innocent, a character who was not a spy but became inveigled in damn near every plot line. It's fine for this one time, but bear with me because it's gonna get boring. So he puts her on a plane. There is a sexy woman on the plane applying pink lipstick, which triggers Robert Vaughn.
Oh yeah, she's doing a nude lip. Looks great.
Bro just
And, like,
drive-by harasses this woman on the way past. He just walks by, he's like, whatever happened to red lipstick? And she's like, it's the same lips. And he's like, very nice.
What he says is,
You know, this is a fraud against men.
Kill yourself. How about that? What are you fucking talking about?
take you to a swimming pool on the first date.
I was gonna say, this idea of like a fraud against men is like so entrenched in 1964 that you could say it about pink lipstick.
How is that? What's the
That's
fraud?
the colour
Like,
lips
what-
are.
Yeah, man.
Red is more
I thought those were
fraud.
your regular lips, but actually now
What are you-
I've discovered that there's fucking lips under here.
Wait till you hear
What the
about
fuck?
overdrawing, my dude.
What? Now you'd kill him if you told about overdrawing.
I will also say this is something I want to talk about, the sexual politics of this movie. Every man in this movie is constantly like sort of wearing displayed on their forehead what they think their percentage chance to smash is at that moment. And it's sort of that's a key component to like every male actor's delivery at this
Robert
point.
Bourne is just like 100% all the time.
It's in the high
Yeah.
90s permanently.
It's tattooed.
Yeah, he sees the pink lipstick, it goes down to 99. She does the line about it's the same lips, it goes up to 105.
Fully just my man moving through life. There's even a bit where when he's asking Elaine about Vulcan and they're like, oh yeah, we had a little bit of a thing in college or whatever, and he immediately hits back with, why didn't you marry him? And I'm like,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know, he was weird. And she kind of like essentially goes, oh, you made a stupid move now. You've only been married into trash.
But yeah, it's so like the politics of the era where it's like, you dated a guy in college, yeah? Why didn't you marry him? It's like, what? Like, I can't even remember the names of half the people I dated in college now, man. Like,
He like builds her legend for her. He like hands her various pieces of information like, this is what your house looks like. You're now Elaine May Van Every, a rich widow in oil wells. Here's what your holdings are. Here's who your friends are. And everything about this is, I think, this thing where she's sitting in the seat, he's being very charming, with quotes, next to her, handing her all this shit. I think this is a 1960s man's idea of what a 1960s woman's sexual fantasy is. And it's all about wealth. And at this point, I wrote down simply, America is dog nation.
no. This isn't the sexual fantasy of a woman in the 1960s. This is the sexual fantasy of me now.
It's like, here is your boundless wealth.
Yeah, because the next morning she's in a hotel room and like Robert Vaughn wakes her up and he's like giving her breakfast and a room full of designer gowns and fur coats and it's like, I've gotten you into a fancy party this evening.
You'll be amused to know that I wrote down which, as she does, stepping out of bed directly into kitten heels is an Abigail Thorne move.
It's all the time. Yeah, she does put on pink heels, but she gets into the hotel room and Robert Vaughn is like, A, put on like breakfast, and B, like filled this room with designer clothes and jewelry and furs. And I have written, I would immediately fuck someone who did this for me, because he's also like, Andrew Vulcan's having a black tie party tonight. Obviously you're gonna like, try and get close to him. I've also booked you a hairstylist and makeup artist. And I'm like,
because you look like shit,
oh,
quite frankly,
my
bestie.
God. Like I would instantly fuck a man who did this for me. This is like an iconic move. Please someone do this.
There's an interesting little line here where he's trying to get her to eat breakfast, which is French toast, and she doesn't want to eat like a big breakfast. And she says, I bet the real Van Every or whatever is fat. American adults overeat. I'm like, it's 1964. Every American woman has 2 eating disorders on the go at the same time, and like whose main calorific group is fucking Quaaludes. And you get a little bit of a sense of like how that maintained itself as a system to just be like, oh, that's a normal thing to say that will make us sympathize with this character, is be like, oh, I bet she's fucking fat.
Also, everyone's like, eating lead and covered in radiation. Like, who gives a shit? Have fucking toast.
Lead
Like, who
rules.
cares?
Lead was like on tables with salt and pepper back then.
There's a bit later where Solo like meets another woman and apologizes for offering her a cigarette that has a filter on it. That's the level of devil may care we're at with
Return with a
public
V.
health. Just like, is a filter okay? So, and she's like, oh, I'm
sorry,
watching
I'm
my
gonna
waist.
fuck you wearing this condom. AIDS hasn't been invented yet.
One thing we've skipped over somewhat is that when Elaine wakes up in the hotel room, Napoleon is there already. He stood in the room fully clothed, staring out of the window, and he goes, "Telepathy is real." And she's like, "Oh," and he's like, "I've been sending you messages to wake up for 60 seconds."
And she's like, why do you have the number 3000 on your forehead?
Yo, what the fuck?
Hell of an opening gambit.
I assume this is like just more 60s like population explosion shit. People must have been talking about this in the 60s. It's like, I think there's something to this mental telepathy thing. And I'm like, what, dude? Good morning to you too?
So she goes to the function where she looks great. She's got her hair done. She's in a gown. She meets the hostess, who is a trans woman.
Who's
I'm
the
going to say this.
same woman from the plane.
That's true.
That's
She's
right.
perpetrating a fraud against
Just
men.
nude lip again. Killer.
Yeah, that's right.
On the spot.
Fantastic jawline on this woman. And she's like, would you like to come and meet the delegation from Western Tumba? And she's like, yeah, sure. Let's do it. And it's weirdly not racist. Like, I'm keenly conscious
not
here.
I was like bracing myself for, oh God, what's
this is
what's
a
it going to be?
podcast of 3 white people, right? But to me, it's fully like, oh shucks, a kind of brand of American liberalism of like, hey, you guys threw off your colonial oppressors. We did that. You know, I did that too.
You like some new ones?
Yeah, you guys are just Americans, but you're just Americans geographically displaced.
Yeah, 100%.
And we see that like we actually managed to have a conversation between these different characters about neocolonialism, because the deal is they're coming to Vulcan because Vulcan is going to build like a synthetic materials, like a plastics plant in their country. And no one else is going to do it. Like, there's a lot of like investors, but no one wants to invest. And we get like maybe basic, but pretty straightforward like discussion of colonialism, which I've put in its entirety as a drop because I think it's worth talking about.
First, we throw the colonizers out, and then we come to them hat in hand, begging them to come back.
Don't oversimplify, old boy. It's one thing to enter as masters and quite another to enter as investors.
And we genuinely have this like 2 different politics of post-colonialism, of the kind of like liberal, it's fine, we'll get them in as business partners again, versus this sort of rankling a little bit when it's people that you've been fighting for your liberation. And it doesn't make any jokes about this. It's just there, and it's and
everyone kind of takes them seriously as like nation builders, and Robert Vaughan meets them later on. He's just like, yeah, I mean, I good luck building a country.
Mm-hmm. But so at this point, Andrew Vulcan sort of like lurches into the frame. The big number on his forehead is going up and up and up because he has seen Elaine May Bender, his old college girlfriend.
Elaine May Bender,
the one that got away. We sense.
Bloody May Elaine May Bender.
Yeah, Elaine.
Bloody hope so.
Elaine May pegging, and he like essentially shoves everyone out of the way, and is like, okay, I need to talk to this woman.
This guy is like, Elaine, I haven't seen you in years. How's it going? She said, oh, like my husband died. Like she says, like 2 months ago.
Goes down a bit to like into the high 70s.
Perfect.
She plays a spot perfectly because he comes over and is like, my God, is that Elaine? And she like looks directly in his eyes and goes, I'm sexually available. And he's like, hot dog, baby. He starts like throwing his hat on the ground.
Back in business. Yeah.
But also, not 60 seconds, he says, it's been many years since I've been moved by the look of a woman. And it's like, you just heard her husband died 2 months ago, my dude. Like,
yeah, but he became Volcel for business.
Yeah.
He takes her out on the balcony. That's right. He takes her out on the balcony. Meanwhile, Robert Vaughan is talking to the delegation, and sort of Vulcan is like looking over his shoulder at him. He's fully winding up to do the kill him thing.
Yeah. This is quite a nice little scene because as Vulcan and Elaine are chatting, we see Robert Vaughan in the background and inside. And Vulcan's henchman, a guy called Mr. Gist, comes in, And he's like, oh, like
Mr. Jameson.
Yeah. But he comes and he says, Andrew, our friend's uncle is here tonight. And it's like, okay. So we get a little bit of like coded
you mean our friend's uncle are here tonight, you ungrammatical fuck.
Yeah. But he's like, we'll make sure that our friend's uncle, is taken care of. Like, and we get a cool little bit of like spy speak. It's
Kill
fun.
him.
It's cute.
And of course, Elaine immediately recognizes this and gestures to Solo, who is like, okay, fine, I'll meet you. I will prepare my special move here. So they talk for a bit. And she talks about him being Volcel. They dance. Because he's taken dance lessons, but he's never had an opportunity to use them until now. And at this point,
I quite like that because she asked him, she's like, "Surely you must have learned to dance between college and now." And he goes, "Well, I took lessons, but I've never had the inclination to use them until tonight."
Good,
and I was like,
"Good."
He says until just now, which is saying
his sexuality sort of like blossoms like a flower, which is then crushed immediately because Napoleon Solo has been charging his special move. This is something above a Sigma male. This is a fucking theta male move.
This is unbelievable.
He sees them dancing. He like takes his hand away from her and he's like, no, you're doing that wrong. You need to be doing it like this. Shows him how to dance and then goes, by the way, I'm stealing this woman from you, and dances away with her. Fucking incredible.
Just Sigma shit. Unreal.
It's all carried on the eyebrows here.
But they chat, and this ends up being quite cute because they chat, and Robert Vaughn says, "Okay, cool. I understand that I'm in danger. Put this thing in the Prime Minister's drink, the Prime Minister of Western Tumba." And they're like having to like laugh and pretend this is a normal conversation because they're being watched. But then Robert Vaughn kind of dances her back to Vulcan and then goes, "Thanks very much," and walks away. And Elaine has this line where she says, "What a charming man," or at least I'm sure he thinks so. And it's this quite like nice moment where she acknowledges the weirdness of what's just happened.
Yeah, for sure. Plus, generally, one of my favorite things is when a character says, "Hey, laugh like I'm saying something really funny to you right now," and like the other person laughs. That I really like that. That's one of my favorite sort of spy movie things. But so she does drug the Prime Minister. This happens off screen because Solo has to like go and powder his nose. He has to break into like a women's powder room, and like communicate with Channel D to talk to this horny woman back at headquarters. On the way out, another woman who he's been flirting with earlier looks at him like, why are you in women's spaces? And he sort of once again theta males his way out of it by being like, "Listen, I'll be in Manhattan on Thursday. You can fuck me then. Do you have to break down the door in here?" And it's like, Jesus Christ. I have some thoughts about the sort of like the sexuality and the sexualization of this movie. They're not all negative, but like most of them are.
Yeah, I mean, at least the lady on the plane that he talked to the lipstick lady, like she deliberately like makes eye contact with him and then deliberately like drops her lipstick on the floor so that he picks it up. Like, so at least she instigated that a little bit. We see throughout this film that like Robert Vaughn is being pursued by women. He's not always like chasing them around like Sean Connery was. Not always.
So the Prime Minister is like incapacitated. He has to be carried up to his room. He's like knocked out. He won't be able to go and visit the plant, which is where they think the assassination is going to take place. So they think he's safe. He gets in his car to drive back to his hotel. On the way, he
has a bizarre conversation with Maggie.
Yeah, he calls up Maggie again, who is like, "Good that the thing's working. By the way, you up? What are you wearing?" She fully initiates this as like a flirtatious, as a sexual conversation.
She tries to sext him over a 60s radio connection.
Yes. She's like, what are you wearing? It's like grey flannel suit, same as every other cunt. Yeah.
How dare you? His is tan, sort of like a brown.
You up? Want to cyber? Over.
I love when a guy comes to my door and it's like, "Telegram," and then she's like, "Do you want to fuck?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's a bit forward. I don't even know you."
It's like I'm driving my big sort of 60s Cadillac like down a nice quiet country road. I'm turning the steering wheel for miles and it's not moving. But bet you wish you were here instead of locked up in an office.
But he has this fucking bizarre line before he hangs up where he just goes, "Drink your milk."
Yes, because
what the fuck?
Well, he's like, she's like got milk and cookies there, which
Women
he somehow
be drinking
knows because of telepathy.
something.
And she's like, "Will you sext me?" Essentially, and he goes, "Drink your milk." Good girl.
We're not
and
ginning
it's
up
like,
a bit where he's genuinely telepathic. We're not gonna do.
I was thinking about it.
I was thinking more
mind.
about this sort of like a Discord daddy kitten relationship between these two. It's atrocious.
Yeah, it's very odd. Discord
and at this
daddy
point,
is a disgusting phrase, and I hate you for putting it in my mind.
Yeah.
Not now, kitten. Daddy has to like detect the presence of another woman, which he does because he's like the pussy detector goes off.
Yeah.
It's like the number on my forehead is still very high, but there's no one around.
Yeah, why is it going up? And he turns around with a gun and it's like there's an Italian skank in the back seat of my car.
There's a broad in my fucking wagon. What's happening here?
He pulls over. He does the line about like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I only have filtered cigarettes," which is fucking
'Cause I'm
great.
gay.
Homo.
You might as well put a fucking dick in your mouth.
You give me a filtered Marlboro? Die. Get out of my sight.
He gets her out of the car, and he's like, "Well, what if you have a gun concealed on you?" And she's like, "I'm wearing a fucking look at this dress.
She's like,
do I look like I have
where?
shit concealed on me? The tuck is like halfway up my fucking asshole on this thing." And he's like, "Well, I don't know, it could be done." And at this point, he sticks his gun in her tits, and the sort of the like interactive fiction thing of use gun on tits that he's doing here really feels like every spy movie we've done has like collapsed into one singularity.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. Fucking cut it, print it, send it, make it the episode art. Him sticking his gun in a woman's tits. But then he searches her with the gun barrel, and it's sort of more, it's not shown, right? We see her face, but the sort of thing is he puts the gun barrel like up to her pussy
Yeah.
to like inspect it for weapons.
And she's like,
Gotta shoot this woman's pussy off.
she's either into this or pretending to be.
Use gun on pussy. That's right. So at this point she's like, the 009's still alive. He wants to meet you. He sent me here. It's not a trap, and if it is a trap, you're so smart and handsome. You could definitely get out of the trap if it was a trap. And this works. Of course, it works.
Because he's telepathic. He's like, well, I'd know if it was a trap.
And then
Yeah.
you get the drop that we had at the start where she's like, "Oh, you just kill me straight away," and he's like, "Yep." And she also I've written here she's a great actress because as like, he opens the door for her and she gets in the car and then he walks around to get on the other side, and just through a look we get her going like, "I'm evil."
Yeah, she's so
the
good at this.
expression on her face is just like, ha, ha, ha.
genuinely the best actor.
Yeah,
in this
it's
movie.
fantastic.
And so he drives them to the same house that we saw 009 get killed in. And we get some more flirtation on the way. She's like, "Oh, I live alone from time to time. And
Me too, baby.
yeah, I never have any men back here." And he's like, "Oh, so I shouldn't like intuit anything from this. I shouldn't like misbehave." And she's like, "Oh, I didn't say that." And I like this. It is cute. And it makes me think about this because this sort of normalization of flirting, of sexuality is, as we know, a tremendously oppressive thing in real life, right? However, when it's done in this this framework of fiction, where it's like, oh, everyone's horny, everyone's into it, nobody's like got a headache that day, or is gay, or just fucking doesn't fancy you, or whatever. Whenever it's no stakes like this, you get a little glimpse of how I bet it was possible. It wasn't worth it, but I bet it was possible if you were in the mood with the right person for it to be fun, for it just to be totally normal, for a man to go up to a woman and be like, "Hey, nice tits, how's it going?" kind of thing. It's it's nice
this
in a way,
whole
which
scene
seems so weird.
Is like that, right? This whole scene is the two of them just sort of like moving through the house doing bits, and I'd like earnestly find it extremely charming.
He's genuinely doing like Bob Hope bits because he knows it's a trap because of the telepathy. He grabs like a sword off the wall and he's like, oh yeah, my grandma used to swing a sword around looking for like prowlers and stuff. And he's they're just doing bits with each other. He's like darting through doors unexpectedly and like getting her to go through things. Finds the house empty. And he's like, okay, I still know this is a trap, but I'm gonna let my guard down enough to have sex with this.
Yeah.
woman.
Meanwhile, his like forehead meter is just like gone up to about 200% at this point.
Yeah, and then we get this frankly incredible exchange.
A line which I have been painted with a laser designator. This line has been dropped from an aircraft.
And the lads are like sighting you up and blowing up children in the next yard over.
At 30,000 feet, it has spiraled down to directly obliterate me because he's kissing her. He like undoes her dress, and the discussion that they have is,
What would you like me to change into?
Oh, anything but a boy.
happens to the best of us, Napoleon. It's not, you should try it. It's not bad. You might like
she
it.
opened up the whole scene by being like, well, if I was a trap, you'd notice before you went down.
Grinder, yeah.
But like it's hilarious for Alice reasons, but also
yes,
it's a very like instant and very specific denial from Robert Bourne. It's like, what would you like me to change you to? Not a boy.
He's like, not gay.
I'm not gay. I didn't say that.
I would hate for you to be a nubile young boy.
Not thinking about. Yeah, it's like, why do you have a second smaller percentage on your forehead that just says thinking about femboys, and why has it been at 9999 the whole movie?
Yeah, it's just like an extremely specific denial from Robert Bourne. It's very funny.
To be about to have sex
definitely
with like
not a guy.
Beautiful woman and just go, I'm not thinking about men. Bracket unprompted. And you're like, huh?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, what's up? Anyway, so
okay.
they have sex. She's like, do you think I'd look good with a moustache? He discovers.
He's like, I really enjoyed making Abigail the other night at the TM show. Oh.
And he finds the like burnt label in the fireplace, and he's like, oh shit, fucking 009 was here, and he's not gonna come and meet us. I'm being led up the garden path. Luckily I already knew this, but so she's got, there's an old Russian proverb. It's the fox knows many tricks, but the hedgehog knows one good one. She knows one assassination method, which is, would you like to stand in my like window here?
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to do it, and she's just kind of stuck.
He really clearly doesn't want to do it. She like points down at the fucking like fake little bridge over the brook in the garden or some shit, and is like, look, there he is. And there's just a guy stood like perfectly statuesque silhouetted. And I'm like, is that him? And she's like,
there's a guy with a gun hiding in that guy's silhouette, which is so gay.
Silhouette technique, which I used for the opening of the film.
Yeah, the second guy stood perfectly behind you so that he's blocked.
Two identically shaped dudes.
Is it gay to stand perfectly behind your dude, concealing your silhouette from the enemy? So she throws on the lights and then tries to push him into the field of fire, but he just like sidesteps her and she falls into the
he
path
uses
of
the
every
technique
bullet.
of walking slowly around her again.
Yeah, he once again he just does that.
He goes around a pillar and
like,
oh fuck, it's one move. And it works. It works. She gets absolutely lit up, and I wrote owned.
Yeah, she gets owned. He looks a little bit shocked and a little bit sad because Solo is like debonair and urbane. He's not like in the business of killing women callously, even when they're trying to kill him. But then the two goons try to come in, and we get a chase scene. He like gets out over the roof. They chase him through the gardens. We get a bit of a shootout. He gets away in his car, and then one of the goons goes to the other, hey, get the car, and he goes, no, don't worry about it. I've tampered with the car. in a plot for my sort of unproduced screenplay called Speed. I've hooked the speedometer to some kind of bomb or something, and the second it hits 50 miles an hour, that shit is just armed. I call it the car that couldn't slow down. And then he delivers this weird line where he says,
Our uncle's gonna go sleepy by forever.
much like the podcast.
yeah. Very unusual. But then, so Robert Vaughn does in fact get to 50 miles an hour, and they knock out. They deploys a little.
I thought it was a bomb.
Bomb.
Wait, literally sleepy bite? Because the gas, the sleep gas, the knockout gas, the weed gas comes up through the dashboard.
How can you know that would kill him? 50 miles an hour isn't fast. He could just
it was sort of 60s cars. He's being impaled by the steering wheel, but he happens to be like... He happens to be on a bridge. If he hadn't been on a bridge, he'd fuck knows what would have happened. But he goes into the water. At this point, we go back to Elaine, who is looking at herself in the mirror in her sort of expensive dress and is terrified. She's like, I don't know who I am anymore.
Yeah, she's hearing the fucking Green Goblin suit through the door being like, go on, be rich.
Is away from her husband for one night. I don't know who I am anymore.
After all, why shouldn't I become a sort of a rich and wealthy widow? And Solo stumbles in, sort of half drowned, and immediately passes out on the carpet.
Yeah, there's a degree to which I find it very fun that they set up a trap for Napoleon Solo and it just honestly goes off and works.
Yeah,
he just
barely works.
Survives and is like, fuck, they nearly got me.
He loses his gun and his communicator.
As he says to her when she's feeling a bit insecure about it later, I don't know why, you're doing better than I am, which I liked. But so she nurses him back to health. He does this whole rest of the scene with a wet towel on his forehead. And she's like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. Andy seems like a good guy. And, I'm not really loving being a sort of spy cop and being used as sort of a sexual trap here. And he...
Well, if it was a trap, you'd know when you went down.
That's right. And in the most sort of 1950s America is dog country response, he literally goes, and this is damn near verbatim, well, if me being hurt doesn't matter to you, check this shit out. They hurt my car.
No! God damn it.
It's so genuine.
Yeah. They damaged my fucking car, woman. And then he stands her up in front of the mirror and he's like, I'll tell you what your problem is. Your problem is you're afraid of serving cunt. Same speech that Abby gave me when we started this podcast. And she's like, he's like, listen, you're mediocre, right? You're a mediocre housewife and you're going to have to go back to that, as is your role in our society. And so you're afraid because you're afraid you won't be able to do it because you look good now. And she's like, yeah, this convinces me. I'm back on the team.
I don't know why Abby called you a mediocre housewife, but
yeah. I'm really sorry.
It was cruel.
Textually, I'm sure it made more sense.
Yeah. I'm sure you're an excellent housewife, Honest.
Yeah, but so she essentially is convinced to get taken by Vulcan to his plant, his factory, on a date.
His location.
To be like, I'm so interested in plastics or whatever. Please take me to the plastics.
It's like, I'm going to make them really small and then put them in everything.
We get some great goon outfits.
Yeah, we do. We get a whole bunch of great sets in the factory. There are some fantastic ones.
Yeah. I will be calling this place the Pipes Factory from now on, because that's what it is.
Also, they have a room where it's just big shit bubbling.
They've got the boiling piss room. I was very excited to see the boiling piss room.
Yes, the boiling piss room. The boiling piss has a gantry, and people walk over it 5 times in the same shot. And I'm like, oh, they're going to dump someone in the piss.
And they never do.
Someone's going in the piss. And they just...
No one ever goes in the piss.
I'm so fucking mad because they have 3 scenes where people are walking over this gantry over the boiling piss. And there's no handbars on there is on the gantry, but when you get past that, there's just a big... No fucking hand railings. No one goes in the piss. What the fuck? What am I doing here? Wasting my fucking time.
So Vulcan's like, yo, go, let me show you the loading docks. And she's sort of going along with this. Solo has called in some help. and we see that the security see a parachutist coming down on the lawn, which immediately sets off like every alarm. Vulcan's like, guards, kill him. Solo, the real Solo, like just effortlessly sneaks into the piss room. Because as we see, the parachutist is like a dummy parachutist. And we get a great sort of almost straight Leslie Nielsen thriller line where Vulcan talks to his scientist, Mr. Piss, Mr. Jizz or whatever, and it's like, it's a diversion. Why? To get us away from so he just like explains what a diversion is. It's very nearly it's a big building full of doctors.
A diversion, what is that? Well, it's to distract us so we can do something else, but that's not important right now. It's to go to the boiling piss room. Audience, I cannot stress enough how much this looks like boiling piss. It's just a big yellow vat of liquid.
It's where they keep the piss.
And at this point, I wrote, I'm not entirely certain what Vulcan's industry is. Because there's like a reactor, there's the boiling piss, he's talking about plastics. Like what?
Yeah, it's business. It's a business factory.
Yeah.
But
we see the funniest piece of spycraft in this whole movie, which is so Solo gets out of the room, he gets to the door's locked, there's a goon outside the door. So he knocks on the door, the goon opens it, he like hustles past him and goes, oh, by the way, Vulcan wants you indoors, and like tries to get past
yeah, this is really good. He's like in a tuxedo at this point. He's like, Vulcan wants you, and the goon goes, oh, okay, hey.
It's really good.
This lasts long enough for the second door stuck incident of this movie, where he just like slams the goon in the door and runs. Door stuck.
You're a certified dick sucker. Yeah, he like makes his way out and escapes into the pipe maze.
Yeah, we get a pretty good, I think, chase scene of him through the pipes.
Man from U.N.C.L.E. loves a foot chase.
They do, and
it's a Mongo. He meets a Mongo extremely briefly.
I wrote down in caps, last minute Mongo.
I wrote Mongo.
A guy,
caps also.
a big guy with a pipe just takes a swing at him. The guy brought a pipe to work in the pipes factory, and he tries to like take his head off.
That's showing initiative.
Oh yeah, and he just dodges it and moves on. That guy's in like one shot.
One of the pipe factory. I brought my own pipe from
all
home.
of us sort of like. there's also a great shot, a two-shot combination, right, where one of the guards fires a gun at him, and we get a zoom in on that guard's face and his hand holding the gun, which makes him look super cool. And then in the next shot, Solo picks up a small trash can and like places it slightly to the left of its previous position, and that same guard runs full force into it and eats absolute shit. It's great.
It's fantastic.
So Solo retrieves Elaine, and then they run out to the car, and then we get the twist because the president of West Natumba is there with a gun, and he's like, you almost foiled my plan. And it's not him who's going to be assassinated, it's his two buddies.
Yeah, because he's been working for Wasp.
I've been working for Wasp the entire time. And you're like, oh wow,
Sphinx. So at this point, both Elaine and Solo get captured. They put them in some pretty dramatic-looking D-shaped handcuffs.
We get a phenomenal line, which I'm gonna try to get first try, but I don't entirely remember which one it is.
Come over here, Mr. Solo. You're about to be chained to a pipe.
That's I also have that.
Come over here, Mr. Solo. You're about to be chained to a pipe. Come over here, Mr. Solo.
TFW, you're about to be chained to a pipe. Keep it real, my dude. You're about to be chained to a pipe.
And that is what happens. My notes say they chained Solo to a pipe.
They chained him to the pipe. No.
So he's gonna be fucking sous vide'd to death. They're gonna Googa him with this steam pipe.
Next to the Bourne guy's guns.
Yeah, they like cover him in spices and they're gonna sauna him to death. Like,
they literally say this to him, and he like turns to this woman that he's just pulled out of her life. He turns to Elaine and is like, "Yeah, sorry about that," and she literally is just like, "Them's the breaks." You're like,
Yeah, she says you tried your best.
The best part is they're both like dangling from their wrists because they've been chained to this pipe, which looks like excruciatingly painful. And she goes, "Don't blame yourself," and he goes, "Oh, I don't." Perfect.
It's just so good. It's like ideal. It's this random.
It's like the like
just facing
the sex chance. Like, the sex chance number is like low but not impossible at this point.
So the Vulcan and the Prime Minister of West Northumberland reveal that when they assassinate the other two West Northumberland dudes, WASP are gonna like take over the country basically, and they're gonna have a whole country. They're gonna have like an army and like economic power at their disposal.
Diplomatic immunity,
exactly,
Mr. Bond. Yeah. Also, we see that because of the sexual betrayal or whatever, Vulcan tries to hit Elaine slightly before this, and Solo like punches him instead because you don't hit a woman. That's bad. Which again, curiously progressive. Another curiously progressive thing, Solo is like, it's sort of, you see where OSS 117 is coming from. He is earnestly hurt that the Prime Minister was like betraying his new country, and he's like, but we were gonna be buddies.
Yeah.
At the UN.
It's gonna have a table next to you. Gonna eat lunch with you at the UN cafeteria.
That's right. So they chain them to the pipe. They leave him to get sous vide'd. And Solo immediately, like, using a shit ton of upper body strength we've never seen him display at any other point, hooks his legs up onto the pipe and then tries to, like, kick a joint into the part. He is wearing patent leather loafers at this point, and he's just kicking this fucking thing, making no impact whatsoever as the room gets steamier and steamier, and the woman behind him dangling from her wrists gets sweatier and sweatier. And I wrote down, is this bondage scene exploitative? And the answer is yes.
That's right.
But he does ultimately succeed in kicking the thing down. The fantastic thing about this, by the way, is that after all of this shit, being sous vide'd for hours, her eyeshadow is still perfect.
Well, no, she gets upset actually because they do dangle down, and Elaine, having just been through this traumatic experience, we do get to have actually a nice moment where we see how she feels about this, because she says, "My
strange,
family never got to see me looking so beautiful last night." I'm like, as my outfit's ruined and my makeup's ruined, and I have to go back and just be a sort of basic housewife again. And it's actually strange that we have this, but it's quite nice.
It's a little sort of like first wave feminist grievance, because she says like all of the like, everyone takes me for granted. I cook and I clean and I feel invisible. And this one time I felt beautiful and no one saw me except you.
It's maybe a nice artifact of the fact that this was originally an hour long and has been extended, and I can't tell what's been added and what was original, but we do get like more sort of character beats than you might expect in like an equivalent James Bond film actually, because obviously the stuff that you add in is stuff that's cheap to film, and that means dialogue and character moments.
Yeah, absolutely. But so he then diffuses this in a sort of like almost sort of killing joke moment where he finds her like missing earring, and they both sort of like break down laughing, because women are silly. So at this point he's like, right, I've got a plan. You're not going to like what the plan is. And she's like, what's the plan? He goes,
come over here, Mr. Solo. You're about to be chained to a pipe.
This is intercut with all of the Littleman guys like walking into the fucking boiling piss room. And I was there like, okay, we're reaching the fucking denouement, baby. Someone's going in that piss. We're going to get a Dr. No moment.
And I'm like, okay, right. He chains her back to the fucking pipe again.
Like,
and she's
got the pipe off.
and she's like dangling from the pipe, like, and I'm like, is this bondage scene exploitative? And the movie's like, well, maybe. And two guys come in. One of them's wearing the big sort of like hazmat asbestos suit, and I'm like,
and then we get the first appearance of something which is going to recur so much in this series that my brother and I used to call the Uncle Chop, which is if you listeners, if you ever need to knock someone out stone cold instantly, but without killing them, what you do is you go behind them and you give them a perfect light karate chop right between the shoulder blades.
That's right.
Takes them fucking out. Absolutely out. 8 hours. 8 total unconscious, immediately just like
If someone ever does that to you, you have an obligation to society, to the world, to drama, to be perfectly asleep for the next 8 hours.
Yeah, my brothers and I we still do that to each other. We still just uncle chop each other for no reason.
Uncle chopping a friend so they get a lovely night's sleep.
Yeah.
At this point,
also, there will be an incredible moment later in the film series where, like, he tries to uncle chop a Mongo and it doesn't work. We'll get there. We're
going to establish
the man with the iron shoulder blades.
Yeah,
not working is remarkable. Fantastic.
So he uncle chops the guy in the hazmat suit, which like covers his face. I'm like, oh, we're doing Dr. No. He's gonna put on the thing. He's gonna like walk around until the guy's like, who's that?
Nope.
No, doesn't fucking do that. He's not. I'm not changing out of these loafers. You know.
Yeah.
These
are expensive.
Sweaty ass steam suit that he's just wearing. He's like, no, I'm keeping
Meanwhile,
this.
I know it smells crazy in there.
In the piss room, there is a dial that just says danger on it that's going up.
Yes.
I love it.
Why would that be a dial and not a gauge?
I wrote down the piss is reaching danger threshold.
What are the units of piss danger?
and he's like to the two guys who's trying to get killed. He's like, please stand here, touch this metal plate. Meanwhile, the prime minister like sort of is like ushered to the side, and as the pressure builds, Solo like enters the room, and at the very last second, he's like, "Hey, we need to get out of here because the piss is going to explode." Pulls the two of them out of the room just in time for the piss to perfectly obliterate everything else in that room. The explosion that happens behind that door looks genuinely frightening. It looks like they overcooked it. A like gout of flame shoots through the fucking door that Vaughn is trying to hold closed. And you're like, Jesus Christ, what fucking stunt guy worked on that?
Yeah.
Much.
Did people really die in this? Like,
yeah. And you know, everyone who isn't fucking Elaine, the two guys that he's rescued or Solo, is burned to a crisp in this explosion. It's a weird sort of ending.
Wait a fucking minute.
The two guys like get to sort of like mourn their prime minister as a hero and a martyr, who, you know, died trying to do something good for his country, which was what he was planning to do to them, in some nice irony. And then we get to the part of the movie that I really want to talk about because it actually really upset me, which is he puts Elaine back on the plane. They fly back to New York, and he's like, well, it's time for you to go back to being normal. But as a reward for serving your country, I got you like a night out at, you know, a fancy party.
Yeah, it says the UN are having like a dinner next week. I've got you and your family tickets to it. I've arranged a gown. I've arranged a hair and makeup artist. Thank you for serving your country, so you can go and you'll look the bomb and your family will be there and you get to have a glamorous evening again. Which I thought was a nice gift. It would instantly fuck someone who did this.
And she says no thank you. And what she says is, because we have to, this being 1964, of course, we have to reify motherhood and femininity and all this other stuff. What kind of a world would it be if women could just go around, you know, doing things on their own? And so what she says and seemingly means is,
Now, I had my big moment last night when I was, well, maybe something I always dreamed I might be. But it was a dream, a memory. It has no right to be anything else.
It has no right to be anything else.
Bullshit!
Is so fucking on the nose. And it's like, how many dreams of how many women were suffocated in this manner? It's so grim. And we see her, like, out the window going back to her family, and you're just like, no, I fucking get where... she might have been in the fucking CIA, but I see where Betty Friedan came from, you know? She probably got this idea from the CIA, considering the way Uncle do this. Also, I did write in a joke here that's like, well, I had a beautiful dream from what I was last night, chained to a pipe.
Well, I mean...
Well,
we
yeah,
are all very
we've
sleepy on
all
this
been
podcast,
there.
but at this point she goes and the air hostess comes and gives the line, "Aren't you getting off, Mr. Solo?" And then the number on his forehead rises to 1000%, and that's the end of the film.
He's like,
circle face
one
on his
sex,
face.
please.
Well, actually, she's like, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And he goes,
We've got an
actually,
hour in this empty plane before we go back to New York, and he's like,
and we have a freeze frame ending. We have him being like,
I like to imagine that the frame after that The frame after that is like
just slapping him.
No, it's her it's him being like, I'm not gay. I'm not thinking about boys.
Is there anything I can get you? Not a man.
Not a soft, supple femboy. Sits in total silence, ramrod straight for the next hour.
He like opens up his laptop, which hadn't been invented yet, and there's like the boy moda map on it, and he's like, yes, actually, you could drop me off in Utica. Also, something I need to bring up, because I just caught it in the I was looking for trivia, and I looked at the cast list and found out the big guy, the Mongo, that's Richard Kiel. That's fucking
fuck!
George.
I thought it looked like him, but I gaslit
George.
myself out of it.
Wow.
I was like, it can't be. It surely can't be, but it is.
That's how he lost his teeth. He survived the explosion
in the pipes factory.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Picture in the fucking group chat, but.
Oh my god, Richard
Kiel. Oh, I love to
so
see.
Anyway,
Fantastic.
he's not gay. Is the thing about Solo?
No, he's not gay.
He is telepathic. And Elaine goes back to her.
Oh my god, he's like looking good in that.
Yeah, it's handsome Richard Kiel.
So,
I'm very impressed. God, sorry.
It's strange to see him without huge fucked up teeth.
What does this movie say about masculinity? And why is it women are always sexually available to you? They actually love it.
Primarily that.
I mean, I'm comparing this to the Connery ones, but it's nice that he doesn't punch a woman. I realize that's a very low bar.
If anything, he punches a man for trying to punch a woman, which is better.
Telepathy is real.
I mean, if you look at, like, here's my thing, right? If you look at the contemporaries of this film, this is 1964, so it came out the same year as Goldfinger, a movie in which Sean Connery correctively rapes a lesbian. Yep. And this one is just like, I mean, it's fucking nothing like it. Like, to consider
day and night
in the time, I'm earnestly like a little bit impressed.
Yeah, I mean, he does compare women to pieces of meat, and he does like sexually harass women, but like this could be a lot worse.
Within its context, this is strangely progressive, and that's an incredibly depressing thing to realize. To be like, oh yeah, this is progressive in that it's like, well, women can have nice lives as a dream, and then they got to go back. You have to go back to your regular shit.
It's probably why Ian Fleming dropped out of it.
You can
shit out of my sight.
I can't stress enough how much that upset me. Just to be like, yeah, you can have your nice thing, but you still have to have dinner on the table.
It's unacceptable.
You know? But we do have a way of quantifying this formally, scientifically. It's called the U.N.C.L.E scheme, and it stands for.
Oh god, sorry. Before we do that, there's one other thing I want to mention, which I meant to check back on, and it's the most insane fucking bit of dialogue ever. It's right back at the start when the WASP agents break into U.N.C.L.E headquarters and the second alarm goes off. In the following scene, we learn the reason for this, which is that apparently the receptionist has a special chemical on her fingers. So when she hands
estrogen.
When she hands you the security badge and then you go through the scanner, the alarm doesn't go off. But if you take the badge and she doesn't touch it, then the alarm goes off. And I'm like, what?
Sick. Sick.
It's like a fantastic security measure to add to the fucking Dorito chips.
Unbelievable.
I didn't want to let this film go without highlighting that piece of absolutely insane fucking nonsense sci-fi, because that's where we're going to go further, listeners.
Fantastic. I can't wait. I couldn't think of a funny acronym for UNCLE here, so I'm just going back to SCUM. The SCUM system. So for SMOM, cultural insensitivity, unprovoked violence, and misogyny.
Well, we'll say UNCLE and then we'll dub it over with SCUM.
the SCUM
system.
We have a science-based rating system on this podcast. It's called the SCUM spectrum.
the man
it, like,
from
cuts
SCUM.
away from his face, so you can't tell, but in doing so makes it much more obvious.
Alice is like firing up a slide projector now, so we're just going.
That's right.
I'm so excited to have started a new series with you two.
Me too. Kill Napoleon Solo begins now. So, knowing
Smart.
the answer,
7,
Smom.
10, 25. This man is a walking like golem of SMOM.
It's all in the eyebrows. It's all fucking
It's good to
up
be
there.
back with like a 60s motherfucker.
Just the
Yes.
I feel like I feel like I want to go like 5 or 6. I don't think it's like full because I think he could get worse.
I want to give him
I
space
do think
to get
so.
worse.
Yeah, I want to go for a 5 here.
Okie
I
dokie.
guess.
Sure.
He does manage to be sort of earnest in a smug way. Cultural insensitivity, I think, lower than I expected.
Yeah.
It's genuinely, it is like a sort of optimistic liberal thing that's like, you know, one nation brotherhood. On the other hand, the first lesson of the movie is that Italian women are untrustworthy skanks, which we don't appreciate.
We do also have somebody
respect all Italian women.
We do have an African nation being referred to as primitive.
Yep,
that's true. That is very true.
But for the time, say 3?
Yeah. Because I think like that discussion of the actual intricacies of like colonialism and like investment and stuff, I was like, wow, that would be like even sort of remarkable now if that was in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not nothing.
Yeah, totally.
But it's not anything like how bad it could have been. So 3.
It passes some sort of like post-colonial version of the Bechdel test where a black character talks to another black character about a country that's predominantly black people in a way that doesn't really speak to white people, which I quite like. Yeah, so I'm happy with the 3. Now, unprovoked violence.
Not a lot. They go out of their way to not kill people. Actually, even Wasp don't do that.
Solo shoots a couple of guys dead. In the TV series, this was like sleep darts or whatever, but we get a shot cut out of a guy like floating face down in some water. But I think those are the only bodies on this movie.
Not piss.
Yeah. We don't even. They fucking.
It's
such a cock tease with the piss thing. It's ridiculous.
It's
but
fucked
yeah,
up. I was like chanting at the end. Like my notes just earnestly, like the last 5 notes I have are just like boiling piss room, no handrails. The piss is reaching danger threshold. Put someone in the piss, 2 exclamation marks, and then fuck's sake when the piss room exploded with no piss.
Fuck's sake.
I think a cock tease. What do you think?
It could be a 1 even.
Yeah, I'm struggling to think of any moments where, like, even when he did the little runaround jog at the start, like that guy had a gun, like, you know.
Yeah.
God, you better believe
Never
that's
really
going to be the
kills anyone
promo.
unprovoked.
That's fucking.
Yeah, it's only the bad guys.
I guess the closest thing to unprovoked violence is the Uncle Chop. Like, genuinely.
They were goons. Also,
that's true.
The Uncle Chop knocks you out. It doesn't kill you.
Well, exactly. So I think it's a 1.
I am marking down number of Uncle Chops per movie, though. I'm putting a single tally here.
Nice. So misogyny.
7.
Yes.
At a minimum, I'm afraid.
The bit where he fucking stands her up in front of the mirror and is like, simply afraid to look nice is fucking
something else.
Fucking bad. It's genuinely atrocious. This movie is reprehensible, and we get 2 women who get agency over their own shit, like who get to be secret agents, and they're both primarily like in terms of like sexuality, in terms of using their sexuality. One of them gets hoisted by her own petard, and the other one is like locked in a fucking bird cage, ready for Napoleon to come back to New York and fuck her. It's like in a meat locker almost.
Yeah,
it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good.
The way that she has to go back at the end.
The way that she has to go, it's really fucking sad. You know. It's like if you made a movie, I'm sure there are movies like this, but it's like if you made a movie about like a trans person where the moral was just repress it.
Yeah,
it's really fucking grim.
I think 7 at a minimum. Like I could push it to 8 to be honest, because that is real bad.
Yeah, for sure. 8.
Okie dokie.
8.
In that case, that gives us a total score of. I'm so tired. 17.
Well, here's the thing: we're all sleepy.
17, which is pretty good. It's the same as Doctor No, which is quite nice. Nice to start a series on a 17. It's the same as Moonraker, as Living Daylights. So same as Patriot Games. So yeah, it's like a pretty good, pretty solid middle of the road score. for a brand new series. I'm so excited for this. I'm so glad you guys let me bring this. I'm so glad that it started well.
Thank you.
Because
absolutely,
my brother and
I'm so glad to be
such
back in
big
the
fans of
60s.
this. Like, yeah. And they're all in the 60s as well. We never get to the 70s. These all came out in the 60s. At some point, we will have to have my brother on the podcast.
Yeah, love to. I'm so happy to be back in the bad decade, where we have some things to say about how things were bad. But right now, of course, we're all very tired.
Our uncle's gonna go sleepy by forever.
So if I can just like sort of arrange us, if we can like stand in sort of like a circle, and on 3, if we all perfectly uncle chop each other in the middle of the shoulder blades. So 1, 2, 3.
Oh God, sorry, just woke up. How are you doing? Good morning, everyone. That was To Catch a Spy. Tune in 2 weeks' time on the free feed for the next episode of Kill Napoleon Solo, which is The Spy with My Face, 1965. Of course, if that's too long for you to wait, do not even start to worry, because in 1 week's time, also on the free feed, thanks to the winter of content, it's The Lives of Others, which is an Alice pick, if you couldn't tell already. Now, of course, it's not necessary to give us any money to get the entire lot of content that we're going to be producing over this winter, but some people still do, and it would be frankly rude of me not to thank by name our £15 and above patrons, and those are Christine Fox, Amanda Comet, Fawkes Winchester, Gustavo Lira, Jack Holmes, Paint McCalla, Thomas Oberhardt, Nick Boris, Yarrick, Nate Mori, Harriet de Kock, Corios, the Commissar formerly known as Jen, Library Hitman, Beef Crime, Benno Rice, Jonathan Gerdes, Callan Bernie, Max Gamenhart, Jack Drummond, Kit Devine, Kentucky Fried Commie, Jay Martindale, Hell Blood Hands, Lisa Meish, Jonathan Siegel, Tarp O, Big Titty Goth Girl, Mothman, George Rohak, Trip, Harrison Fuller, Charlie Out of the Closet, Alex, a Trans Robot, Zoe Shepherd, Turf Seat Shit and Die Alone, Elizabeth Cox, Danny Potter, The Femboy a Spy. And that's so appropriate, and you couldn't have possibly known how appropriate that is to the episode that we've just recorded. And Finn Ross. Kill James Bond is Alice, Abigail, and Devon. Our producer is the wonderful Nate Bethay. Our podcast art is by Maddie Lubchansky, and our website is by Tom Allen. See ya.